Do you think new replacement windows and patio doors have to be expensive? Think again. I'm Andrew Knopick from Renewal by Andersen. As the full-service replacement window division of Andersen, Renewal by Andersen often has larger discounts and better financing than other companies and contractors. Right now, save 20% on every window and save 20% on every patio door, with zero money down, zero payments, and zero interest for 1 year. You can also save money by replacing your windows in stages. With us, you can even save a lot by simply choosing a different window or patio door style. For affordable windows and patio doors that will last, call Renewal by Andersen to schedule your free appointment and save 20% on your project.
Call 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. That's 1-800-406-8700. Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand. Minnesota Vikings, the NFL, football. Yeah, football. Welcome to Purple Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Purple Podcast. Matthew Coller, along with former NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels. And Sage, the Minnesota Vikings are facing their toughest task as an offense going up against the Chicago Bears. It feels very much like the '85 Bears have returned. We don't want to be that hyperbolic, but I mean, this is a stacked defense with one of the best NFL players out there in Khalil Mack, against a Vikings offense that Pro Football Focus put out an article today ranking 29th in the NFL. Let's start there with this matchup. How are the Vikings going to block Khalil Mack?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, sometimes the best way to block a guy like Mack, and you know, people don't talk about it enough, but Mack's, you know, he's a high motor guy. I mean, he's extremely talented, but he has a motor on him that does not stop. And sometimes the best way to block those guys is to actually go right at them and just double team the crap out of him and try to sort of wear him down rather than running away from him. And you think, you know, the natural thought would be, hey, you want to run away from a really good defender sometime, because the way he, you know, with him against the run, and the way he can, with the way he can rush the passer, he gets penetration. He's a physical guy. So when you run right at him, you get those double teams on him more. And he's almost a little bit more blockable. So, you know, that's a way to try to slow him down. You know, he's such a good player. I'd be in position to crack on him a lot. You know, sometimes teams do these, you know, tight splits, and, you know, makes it look like you're going to crack on him. And even if you're a receiver going out on a route, try to limit his pass. So there's different things you can do offensively, to try to, help out with a premier player like this. And he's a real problem. This Bears defense this whole roster is completely different than it was. This is a different team. This is a different Bears team than we've seen in years. I study their offense every single week. This is, I think, other than maybe the Rams, this is probably the Vikings' best matchup of the year, as far as all the things the Bears are doing right now. They're playing really good football.
So the way that I'm looking at this is that the winner of this game, and I know that this is just sort of the nature of the league, and it's tough to tell with one game, but the winner of this game, has a path to winning the NFC North, but also I think proves itself, because when I look at the wins that the Chicago Bears have, there aren't many against tough opponents, and you could say the same thing for the Vikings. And when it comes to this defense for the Bears, it's the same sort of deal. Like, they've really held down some of the worst offenses in the league, and they gave up 38 points to the New England Patriots. So are they really that good? From you having watched them, what else aside from Khalil Mack do they do on the defensive side that is going to give the Vikings trouble?
Well, they usually, for the most part, they keep teams out of the end zone. They do a good job once other teams get to the red zone of limiting the field goals, and they've have been a pretty good turnover team so far this year. They've had some games they've had 3 or 4 turnovers. Last week they just straight dominated Detroit. They had a couple turnovers early in the game. Same with Buffalo. So some of these games have been over by halftime with the way the defense and offenses have played together. So yeah, I mean, against the good offenses, teams have put up some big numbers against them. But all in all, They just played really solid football this year, and their offense scores touchdowns a lot of times off those turnovers.
So I've got some stats for you with Kirk Cousins, because I wrote an article called "Should Kirk Cousins Be More Aggressive?" That he is one of the quarterbacks who throws the shortest air yards per completion, just as far as how often he's throwing it deep down the field, things like that. But when the Vikings do throw it down the field, he's had a lot of success. But he hasn't really thrown into coverage very often either. It's not just that there are short passes, it's that the contested catches, we just haven't really seen them from Diggs and Thielen because he doesn't throw their way if they're covered. I'm curious what you think of that, of just the fact that they've relied so much on short passes, and whether there are ways to get Cousins to be a little more aggressive when his guys are covered and get some of those intermediate passes going. It's been a lot of either bomb or just like really quick, but we haven't seen a lot of those like 12 to 14 yard throws.
Well, and listen, their yards per catch is pretty down. I was looking at that stat the other day. Their top couple of guys are about 12 yards a catch, 13 yards a catch. There's nobody it always seems like a team has somebody who's averaging 17, 18, 19 yards a catch. I think the Rams have at least two guys over 16 or 17 yards a catch. So
they're 28th in yards per completion.
There you go. So they don't throw the ball deep very much. Now, as I'm looking back, I'm trying to imagine throughout the year how many, post routes have we thrown, or how many routes have we thrown where guys, became wide open, right? When you watch really good coordinators, you find guys who are basically wide open. You saw it in that Rams game when they got the matchup on that wheel route to Cooper Kupp, and there's just no way Barr could keep up with him. And really good offensive coaching, especially with that run, that play action, and then some sort of deep throw combination where you pick the right coverage for the right play. And you take advantage of a defense's weaknesses. We haven't seen those, this year. I'm not sure if they're just not that creative to come up with those plays based off of how defenses, defend against them with their run gaps and stuff. But, the best offenses in the league, you see, opportunities, as a deep post by a Stephon Diggs or one of the faster guys on that team that we're going to get that matchup, or even a deep post one-on-one with a safety. One thing Kyle Shanahan used to talk about all the time was, if we can double move a safety, that's way better than double moving a corner, because the safeties don't, play the ball in the air usually quite as well. They get their back turned. They get their feet tangled around a little bit. They just don't play the ball as well as corners do. So, we don't seem to do these big double moves on safeties and get those, deep one-on-one matchups where I think Cousins would love to throw that ball. I think he'd be a, very good deep ball thrower. He's got a, really strong arm. He's pretty accurate, I think.
So here's another stat for you. Stephon Diggs, in terms of his targets, the percentage of his targets that go over 10 yards, that's dropped by about 10%. It was 44% last year. It's only 35% now. And I think that speaks to it. I mean, he's excellent with that sort of thing, with the double moves and post routes and deep dig routes and things like that. And to not have him do it as much, I think might hurt their offense, especially when it comes to converting on things like 3rd and long, where they've really struggled. Every team struggles, but I mean, this team has been particularly poor when they get to 3rd and long. So I guess I'm curious to see if this changes, or how much the offensive line plays a role in this. I think that has to be part of it, that it's not easy to run, deep double moves against the safety when you just don't have time to throw. And this is the thing I go back and forth on, Sage, is like, I don't believe that the Vikings offensive line is very good, but I don't think they're made any better by their quarterback either, if that makes sense. So it could be kind of a combination of things that explains why they haven't hit on more of these intermediate throws.
Yeah. And, let's look at the differences between, last year and this year. There's a different quarterback. All right. Much of the O-line is the same. The receiving core, much of it is the same, yet we're throwing the ball. Although our quarterback is different, but he also has a stronger arm. Mm-hmm. And it came from different teams of, throwing the ball pretty good down the field. That's not Case Keenum's strength. That's not one of the, he wasn't a guy who had a big arm. So, and the other difference obviously is the offensive coordinator and John DeFilippo. So obviously there's, whether it's the philosophy of his or, they're sort of incapable of finding ways to push the ball down the field. But yeah, this team could use some more big plays. And, Stephon Diggs is a fantastic route runner. And on double moves, the way he can break and be in and out of his cuts and then roll after that, Not a lot of receivers can do that. So I think he'd be a great guy to really, be more of a deep threat receiver. He's fast. He's also quick. And I think they're just that's not a part of their offense for whatever reason.
Yeah, and for an outside receiver to only average 10.1 yards a catch is a little bit unusual. I mean, last year he averaged more than that. That's almost like what a slot receiver would generally average because they're getting bubble screens and things like that. When it comes to Dalvin Cook being back at full strength, I think the first question is how many snaps he's going to play, but if he's 100%, then it's almost all of them, I think, just because he's so much more multi-talented than Latavius Murray is. What do you think that does for their offense if he's back for like 50 snaps?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to have them both in. I think they're both better when they're fresh. It seems like to me Latavius breaks off a nice run just about every game. It seems like he has a 20 or 30 yarder and he's good on third down. He catches the ball well. He doesn't really have that big playability. You're not going to see him break one for 60 or 70 like we did with Cook last week. But I think with these two guys and Cook's he's the big play guy. He's the home run hitter. But you don't want to wear those guys down either. You want those guys fresh at the end of a football game and have their best 5 carries of the game, the last 5 carries. And I think mixing these guys up, both of them, and even Mike Boone's a good runner too. I think there's, they can be, swapping these backs, in and out plenty. I wouldn't mind seeing them, doing a little bit what the Bears do. And they'll have, 2 running backs in the game and having Dalvin Cook do some of the stuff that Tariq Cohen does. Yeah. Whether it's jet sweep type stuff or even, how does he run routes? I'd like to see him run a few more routes, get him in space, get that big playability, in space. I'd like to think, that would be valuable rather than always having him in the backfield.
So I was thinking about this after we talked the other day, and I know we really broke down Trubisky, but I went back and watched some more and wrote an article about blitzes, especially looking at the ones that other teams used against Trubisky on third down. Why do you think that the zone blitzes and zone dog rushes are still so effective? And what is so challenging about those for young quarterbacks? Because it seems like Zimmer just finds a lot of different ways to harass young quarterbacks with those.
Well, I'd love to do like a video cast sometimes with you and like go through all the plays where they do the double A gap stuff and how that's confusing. You have Harrison Smith on one side and some sort of nickel Sam or whatever, nickel Will on the other side. And they're both in threatening positions off the edge, and you have the 2 A gap guys, and then what teams do and how they bring certain players and how other players are going to trap, and still play cover 2 behind it. Sometimes play man to man behind it or cover 3 or whatever. The hard part is you look at the guys who are coming, but you don't always look at the guys who are leaving. Mm-hmm. You sort of, as you drop back, you check, okay, who actually came at the snap? Am I good? Am I not good? And sometimes you think you're good and you're not, or somebody else screws up, because they are confused and they break a lot of different rules of running backs. But you don't see those, D linemen dropping out, linebackers crisscross and pass to go trap. You don't always see those guys. And, as I said, it's hard to see everything and see how that puzzle unfolds when you're just dropping back and, you've only seen it so many times. Once you played in the league for a long time, you've seen a lot of those blitzes multiple times. Mm-hmm. And you're just recognition of them and what to do. And you gotta get rid of the ball or somebody's gonna be trapping, so you gotta be worried for that guy, or you can throw it behind their ear or something like that, which, you see people do. Favre was great. Favre saw the trap coming and then he'd like pump fake so the linebacker would overrun, a slant or something like that. Then he could throw it behind his ear. He'd do things like that, which was incredible. So, young guys just don't have enough reps and the more you see it, the better you get at it usually.
Well, first of all, I think that would be awesome if we can figure out how technologically to connect for something like that would bring a lot to people for a film session. So let's do that. So when we're talking about the NFC North here and just like what the battle that's going on and where Green Bay stands, what's your take on how this could turn out, I guess? Because I don't feel like I have a great understanding of who either of these teams are with Chicago and Minnesota and even Green Bay to some extent. That, last week they come out and they run the ball all over Miami. And Miami's not good, but they're 5-5. And Green Bay sort of makes a statement that they're not going away. What is your take on how this could play out?
It's a good question. I do think if you look at the overall teams and how Green Bay's played this year, the Vikings are playing much better football now than they were back then. And they obviously had the tie game in Green Bay. And I don't think Green Bay, they're not playing great football. They just aren't. They're actually running the ball pretty well this year. They're in the middle of the league running the ball. Obviously, they're always near the top league and throwing the ball. And I don't know. I just don't. I don't see the overall talent on that football team to be able to catch. What I think is going to be the Vikings and the Bears, who I think have at this point the two best rosters, in the division. So, it's the Packers go as Aaron Rodgers goes and as those receivers goes and the O-line and all that stuff. And I just don't think with how much they expect him to do, that they'll be, a 10-win football team when it's all said and done at the end of the year.
So I've got some other things that are not necessarily related to this game that I wanted to run by you. And of course, Journeyman quarterback of the week coming up. But who do you think wins this game? I'm having a really tough time with it because I think that the Vikings are maybe a shade stronger, and I trust Mike Zimmer against Mitch Trubisky, but it's on the road, and I don't know. I mean, Chicago just has that great defense. I'm having trouble making a pick here.
So, again, I watch the Bears every week. I watch the Vikings every week. And from what I've seen so far, I feel like Khalil Mack is going to make a play in this ball game. And it's going to be one of those games where it might come down to a play, a fourth quarter play. Trubisky has been really tough with how he's played lately. He has played better and better and better as the season's gone on. He's had some bad games in between there, but for the most part, he's had games where he's throwing 5 touchdown passes, and he's 6 touchdown passes, I believe, in one game earlier in the year. And they've even, I said they got a good football team. They got a really good football team. I'm really interested to see how the Vikings decide to play defense on this Bears team. And I think I have something to write about for the Athletic tomorrow is how would they match up with these Bears weapons from what I've seen so far in film study, and those types of things. And, will they play more zone defense? So they're not getting beaten sort of one-on-one matchups with, these smaller, faster receivers, and they can all, make Mitchell Trubisky work them on, 12 play drives, 14 play drives, make them run the football for 4 and 5 yards and slowly, methodically, have Trubisky not make the mistake, because it does seem like he makes a mistake once or twice a game usually, and you got to capitalize. And so, it's going to be a very good football game. It's going to be probably one of the cooler games the Vikings have had in a regular season, in a primetime game with this much on the line, and it should be a lot of fun.
So that's what kind of leads me to is I love that it's Sunday Night Football, and I love that it's at Soldier Field. Did you have a favorite sporting venue when you played? I mean, was Soldier Field up there? Did you ever play at Soldier Field?
No, I did. I did not play I wish I could have played in the old Soldier Field.
Yeah.
I only played in the new one, didn't play at Chicago actually until that 2009 year with Favre. We had that great Thursday, I think it was a Sunday night game. I believe it was a Sunday night game. It may have been a Monday night game. We lost in overtime. He hit Sidney Rice in the corner of the end zone for an amazing, it was a 2-point conversion or something like that. That was a great game, but it was the new stadium, and it was super cool. It was a neat place, but I always wanted to play in that old stadium. I grew up a Bears fan. My dad's from Chicago. That was what we watched. That's what we listened to on the radio. It was, but I never got to play in that stadium. I was in a Grateful Dead concert though in that stadium when I was a junior in high school. So that was the only time I was actually in the original, Soldier Field.
What was your favorite place to go play, as the quarterback, as a starter? Was there a favorite place that you started?
Favorite place I started? No, I don't think I had any. Trying to think of any, I started in Cleveland, I think twice. I started in Oakland, the old Oakland Stadium. Started in Baltimore, down in Miami. I believe I started a game or so. Obviously, the Texans. I started 10 games for the Texans, and so that's a good question. That's a really good question. At Indy, that was a neat place to play. At Indy's, it's a beautiful stadium.
Yeah.
I will say about that. It's a beautiful stadium. They all really are amazing. When you're sitting in and you're in center at the 50-yard line, it is a really, really cool experience. And Green Bay was super cool to be able to sort of even watch Favre, in that game. That was my first ever playing experience, was actually at Green Bay on a Monday night playing for the Dolphins. I got in there for 3 incompletions, and that was the end of that, or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. The NFL stadiums are really, really, and I think they're getting cooler. They're getting, the Vikings stadium's amazing, and I wish I would have played in that stadium as well.
My other question for you is, we got into this on our Purple Live show last night, and I want your opinion. Or if you care about this or not. I mean, maybe if you're wearing any NFL jersey, that's awesome. But what I want to see is white on white for this game. And I know they won't do it. It'll be the purple pants and it'll be the white jerseys. But the old school way with the Soldier Field and the Bears and the Vikings, if they had the white pants and the white jerseys, I think would be awesome. Do you have an opinion on that? Or did you just not ever really care what jersey you were wearing?
No, if you can wear a cool jersey, I'm always about wearing a cool jersey. Teams didn't do that very often back then, less than they do now even. I think you were only allowed one, alternative jersey, and it wasn't even every year. I thought it was every couple of years you could even do an alternative jersey. We played the Dallas Cowboys on a Thanksgiving game. I was with the Miami Dolphins, and we wore, what would be the equivalent of the 72 Dolphins jerseys. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I was so psyched about that. I actually took the glasses off of our team priest's face, wore them down the tunnel, and wore them out because I wanted to look like Bob Greasy.
Yeah.
And then I gave them back to him on the sideline. I thought that was really cool to be, wear those old school. I think usually the old school stuff looks the best. I think, I don't know, there's a simplicity to it. I've never liked the Broncos New Jerseys. Never. Not from the get-go. Still don't. Just don't like them. I know they're trying to be sort of aerodynamic or something. I haven't been into them. I've never liked the Texans jerseys. They're so lame and boring. But all whites, the all whites Texans are awesome.
Yes.
I like the all whites. I like when Iowa State goes all whites. But the old school jerseys are cool though. I always like the old school jerseys. And I think all whites would be very cool, especially versus a team that'd be wearing, Bears will be in what? They'll be in all blue? No, they'll be in blue and white pants, I would assume.
Yeah, probably the blue and white pants. You didn't have a great draw for jerseys until you got to New York. The Giants, that's an amazing jersey. And that's what inspired me to think about this, was that the Giants and 49ers, to me, is in all of the NFL the best team versus team jersey matchup. Giants in all white versus 49ers with their red tops.
Now, do yourself a favor. Look up the old Pittsburgh Steelers jerseys from back in the 70s. Then look up the Iowa jerseys. Iowa actually wears the old Pittsburgh jerseys, which I thought were actually are a cooler looking jersey back then than what Pittsburgh does now. They've changed it just a little bit, I believe. I think I saw this the other day on Twitter. But the Iowa Hayden Fry actually copied the Pittsburgh Steelers sort of jersey colors. That's where the Hawkeye jerseys look so much like theirs.
Huh. Well, yeah, I mean, any of the classics are going to match up well. I mean, if it's Dallas against Pittsburgh, like the old 70s Super Bowl sort of matchups, those are good. Washington against Dallas.
So you like the 49ers?
I do, yeah. I really like it. Now,
looking back, how much did you not like how much did you like or not like the 49ers jerseys when I think they won the Steve Young Super Bowl and they were sort of more of a black. They had sort of a black in their number or something like that.
I'm gonna have to
you know what I'm talking about?
I'm going to have to check that. I'm going to have to look at that right now because I'm not remembering it well. All I remember is that San Diego didn't exactly put up a fight.
No, that was Junior Seau Super Bowl.
Yes. It had like a shadow.
Had a shadow on it.
No,
yeah.
I didn't like the shadow. Nope, I don't need that in my life. I need what they were wearing the other night with the stripes.
The stripes, those are sweet.
Stripes are awesome. And
by the way, he's going to be he'll be a good backup quarterback, that kid.
Who's that?
I think that kid will be, Nick Mullins. I think he's in the perfect situation. That's why you wonder why I speak highly of the Kyle Shanahan offense and what these guys do. Because you can have a guy like Nick Mullins who you can tell doesn't have some big arm, doesn't have some, but just executes and does his best and tries to go through his footwork and has a place to throw the ball and be on time. He's not asked to do too much, and he can be an effective quarterback. He almost won his first 2 starts.
Yeah, he's pretty accurate, too. I mean, he seemed like he was getting the ball out, and it doesn't matter if you're throwing, laser beams if you got some timing and accuracy. The Steve Youngs with no shadow, with gold pants, and the stripes on the jersey, those are elite. Those are the best.
Those are elite. All right. Anyway.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for Journeyman Quarterback of the Week.
Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience this football season. Tons of TVs, legendary appetizers, amazing fresh half-pound burgers, handcrafted sandwiches, and a wide variety of other pub favorites. The drink menu is awesome, too. Huge selection of tap beer, handcrafted cocktails, and the best Bloody Marys in town. Seriously, these Bloodies are awesome. Try the Bacon Bloody, the Jalapeno Bloody, the Mother Mary, or just get a flight and try them all. Plus, Lucky's 13 celebrates Sunday Fun Day. Happy hour all day long on Sunday, every Sunday. Events and prize giveaways during games, too. Lucky's 13 has locations in Bloomington, Burnsville, Mendota, Plymouth, and Roseville. Having people over for the game? Call ahead to Lucky's and order some of those legendary apps, and they'll be ready to bring home when you get there. It's football time at Lucky's 13 Pubs. Find them online at luckys13pub.com. luckys13pub.com. It's the most wonderful time of the year, football time. And Lucky's 13 Pubs has you covered for the best game day experience. luckys13pub.com.
Show some respect.
Listen, bud,
Salute.
I've traveled every road in this here land.
It's time for Matthew and Sage to honor one of the NFL's great journeyman quarterbacks.
And for this week, a team that is just legendary for its journeyman quarterbacks. And let me just give a quick overview of the history of the journeyman quarterbacks, if I can here. Just pull up the Bears. I mean, there are so many magnificent names. Just players who led the team in passing, not even guys who just came on through. Eric Kramer, Cade McNown, who kind of kicked us off with this whole thing. Jim Miller, Cordell Stewart had a time there. Chad Hutchinson led them once. Brian Greasy, so the Greasies both get a shout out. Mike Tomczak, of course. Vince Evans would have been back in your day. Steve Walsh. So those are some of the great names. But one that you are familiar with, Shane Matthews, who started as a Chicago Bear, went 8-7, a classic journeyman thing to do. He went 8-7 in 15 starts with 19 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. Again, a classic journeyman line and a 75 quarterback rating. Tell me what you know about Shane Matthews.
Well, here's the deal. Shane Matthews was a 3-time SEC Player of the Year. This is off the top of my head from my time. I played with him with the Washington Redskins in 2002. He was there. Danny Werfel was there. And Patrick Ramsey was just drafted in the first round. So I got to spend some time with Shane, got to know him, over the years. I believe he was a 3-time SEC Player of the Year. Never won a national championship. I think the Bears drafted him like the 7th round. And then, but super likable guy, really smart, really understood football and how to attack coverages and how to beat blitzes. He was, sort of one of those coaches on the field, wasn't overly talented, super skinny, like never lifted weights, ever. Never lifted weights.
Same.
Played golf. He was one of those quarterbacks, and Coy Detmer was sort of the same way, where those guys didn't really, it was back in the day where they were just savvy enough and they could throw it. And, you don't have to be really strong necessarily to throw a football well. It's like a golfer. You don't have to be huge to hit a golf ball far. So, he played back in the day where he wasn't much of a lifter, but, he had one heck of a career, bounced all over the place, played for the Bears, a couple times, first stint and second stint.
Yes.
I was with him right after that in Washington 2002. And then I know this, at the end of his career, he signed with the Dolphins. He literally hadn't touched a football in like a year. And he was like, the most he'd been doing is like walking his dog. And the Dolphins like picked him up like mid-season. Maybe it was the Bills. It might have been the Bills. Maybe it was the Bills in 2000. I can't remember what it was. I think it was the Dolphins. But
well, you are right about both.
Got 6 games or something like that. And it was incredible. I was talking. I was like, "What have you been up to?" He's like, "Dude, I haven't done anything with football in a year." And here I am, they just signed me because they needed somebody that knew the offense or something like that.
So
it's incredible.
He did have a brief stint with Miami, didn't play for them, but did get in a couple games for Buffalo in 2004, which I remember. Now, the great thing, there's a couple great things here. Like you mentioned, a second stint, which is just like, check that box, that the Bears brought him back, and he got into games 4 years in a row. 3 with Chicago and 1 with Washington. And each year, 4 years in a row, threw exactly 6 interceptions. From 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, 6 interceptions for each one of those games, which is sort of funny. And then I run across this in his Wikipedia. that Matthews was chastised by then Gator head coach Urban Meyer for criticizing his coaching decisions on the air as a sports talk broadcaster in North Central Florida.
Yes, I know he does some radio work down there, down in Gainesville. He's got some kids and stuff. I'm friends with him, I think, on Facebook or something. And his son was a high school quarterback, down there. He's a fisherman. He's an outdoorsman, Mr. Matthews. And so, the Shane Matthews Band is what my friends always called him.
That's great.
That was sort of his little nickname. But, he had quite the career. It's interesting. He started 22 games. I started 12. He threw 31 touchdowns to 24 interceptions, and I threw 30 to 20. So I threw a lot of touchdowns, a lot of interceptions. We sort of had a similar, type of career. He threw for about 4,700 yards. I threw for about 4,000. So it's impressive to only start 22 games and play for, 6, 7 teams here as you're looking at it? 7 teams or something. 6 teams.
4, 5, 6, 7 teams.
Of a long career. 14 years, right? 14 years, 22 starts. I bet you his body's feeling all right.
Yeah.
Not a bad way to go.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing, the difference between you and him, and this is what I love about the difference between certain journeymen, is that you were more aggressive. You averaged more yards per attempt, where Shane was very much the not aggressive journeyman quarterback who was just going to dink and dunk down the field. He averaged 5.7 yards per attempt for his career, which is like a handoff.
It's all about getting completions. You know what I mean? Shane, you and I talked about it. He's like, I ain't holding on to the ball for nobody. I'm getting it to the ball, getting the person the ball, the first person who has the one-on-one matchup, get open. I'll get you the ball. I ain't trying to back here holding on to it. And he did. I will say this. I saw him take some serious hits in some preseason games in the year I was with him. And he would get up and he was just so slight. He was probably 190 pounds. I don't even know if he was 200 pounds. And so, he was, he could take a hit. He was tough. He just didn't work out that much.
You averaged 7.4 yards an attempt. You know that? I mean, that's pretty good. That's like Kirk Cousins this year.
Well, there you go.
For your whole career, 7.4 yards.
Sometimes I do it to the other team.
You did.
I do it to the other team.
That's part of the deal.
I was hot and cold.
If you didn't, we wouldn't have this podcast. You would have just, been a starter.
You got to be valuable enough. You got to be valuable enough, but sometimes you got to be valuable enough that you're actually, but have your flaws that you're not really competing with the starting guy. So
yes.
Then accept your place. That's the key to it. The longevity. Shane Matthews definitely knew his role on the football team.
And, same, he wouldn't have this award maybe if he had lifted a few weights. So, anyway, we'll send him a Facebook message, tell him congratulations. He is our journeyman quarterback of the week. And you know what I'm looking forward to, Sage, is just having a new football game to talk about. It's been a while. So, I am really looking forward to this Sunday. So, thanks for your time as always. And we will talk to you again next week after Bears and Vikings break it all down. So, thank you all for listening to the Purple Podcast.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. It appears there may be more than 200 people still missing in the Northern California wildfire. 48 people are known dead. Vietnam veteran Howard Taylor got out alive, but his hometown is pretty much gone.
All the stuff that we had grown up with for years, our landmark restaurants and stuff like that, they're gone, just totally in one day. The whole town basically was just wiped off the map, to look at it that way.
Linda Rawlings had to run too, but her home burned down.
Before you go, always have hope. You don't want to give up. But now we know. Now it's time to fight back.
A new problem for Florida's vote. Palm Beach County's tallying machines have overheated, causing mismatched results with the recount of early voting ballots. Now workers are redoing that part of the recount, while lawyers are going back to court today in the Florida election recount drama. I'm Rita Foley.